Hi everyone, happy to see you on AI Marketing Automation Day. Today I have a special guest for this interview. It's Max Tkach. Max is a staff developer advocate in n8n. Hi Max, how are you?
Hi, thanks for having me on today. Excited to get into this conversation.
I'm really happy to have you too. For everyone who is new in the topic of AI agents, what is n8n? Can you give a little bit more context and why we are talking about n8n and AI agents as something similar?
Yeah, absolutely. So, what is n8n? n8n is a workflow automation platform, right? So you have business processes, they have multiple steps. Most of those steps you could model as a virtual step in a workflow. So an n8n workflow models business processes usually, and you can think of a workflow as anything that really interacts with data. Are you pulling data from a system, transforming it based on business logic, loading it somewhere else? That's a workflow automation tool. We've added a bunch of AI capabilities and agentic capabilities, which are the talk of the town these days. On top of that, which basically enables more of those steps to be in your workflow and not in the real world, because AIs are good at dealing with fuzzy human inputs, which is usually the kind of thing that stop them being added into a workflow. So, in short, that's what n8n is and how AI fits into that picture as well.
How n8n became the top of mind in AI agent industry? There were Zapier, Make, a lot of other
Mhm.
tools, but if you are talking with marketers, with developers, and you are talking AI agents, for a lot of these people, n8n is equal to AI agents. How do you think, what was the reason why n8n is in top of mind of this industry?
It's a really good question because I think a lot of us at n8n were also asking this. I joined n8n 5.5 years ago, and 5.5 years ago, I enter a room and no one knew who we are.
Mhm,
Today, when you go in Google Trends, you can see there's a clear trend that we've overtaken some of these incumbents,
mhm,
as you said. I think there's a few different reasons, and these are all theories.
mhm,
But the first one is since day zero, we have invested heavily in community. And I think community, it's like one of these things like SEO. It's
mhm,
not followers. Community doesn't equal followers. It's people
mhm,
whose your product occupies time in their mind per day, and they
mhm,
want to seek out other people who also it's occupying time in their day, be it to create an economy around this product or content and whatnot. And so what happened is we're going into winter of 2024,
mhm,
and AI is a very hot topic for a lot of people. And I think combined also with a lot of FOMO and fear at that time. So people are excited about technology and seeing demos that are really powerful. And then they're thinking about job loss. How does this potentially interact with my profession? I think a lot of us were thinking that. And I think what happened is by basically the Christmas holidays, the end of year holidays, a lot of people that I know personally were using that downtime to invest in understanding AI. At that
mhm,
moment in time, if you asked ChatGPT, what's AI agent, what's n8n was being recommended. Now, why did I mention community? I think a big reason as to why the LLMs were recommending this, and there's a lot of people talking about, AI, LLM, search engine optimization, is because on the Reddits and all these places on the world where we can't control the conversation, tens of thousands of people have to say something for that to have an impact in the LLMs. They
mhm.
were saying that because of the community at the time.
Yep.
So it's the community basically created enough weight to where we're being seen. And so we had a pronounced impact compared to, again, incumbents who are worth 10, 20 times our valuation. And why is that important? Because they had 10, 20 times the effort, marketing power than we did. That at that point, we had good templates in place. We were already being effective on YouTube ourselves, as was our community. So when you asked the question, we were discoverable. And then we had the funnel to activate you in terms of educational resources and that sort of thing. I think from there, it was then correct execution, having the right features. We get a feature wrong, we listen to the community again because they have a strong voice, and we iterate on that in days and weeks and get that out. And it is shipping a new version every week. So that velocity combined with great luck in timing and execution, I think led to it. And so if you're watching this and you're asking for your own marketing strategy, um, community takes a long time to build. If you have a product like Motion, I cannot recommend strongly enough. Just like with SEO, people say, hey, it's important. You just got to do it. You will get the payoffs a year, 2 years down the line. Same thing with community.
Sounds really great. Let's go to the use cases. If you talk about AI's macro impact on marketing, what use cases do you see on n8n? How the AI and AI agents are game-changing marketing? What are the most popular workflows? What are the most popular use cases? Can you give a little bit data for us?
Sure. So obviously, this really depends on what industry you're in, what your product is a product led, this kind of thing. So I'll keep it a little high level because I think there are some commonalities. One amazing thing that I'm seeing, and this is a pain point or an opportunity for marketing, but also for product. I love when things overlap because usually you can get the resources of two teams to go make that happen faster. It's understanding sentiment, right? There's lots of sentiment analysis that's happened over the years pre-AI, but with a tool like n8n, I mean, let me put it this way: every single video that is in English language that mentions n8n or the topic of automation, n8n has in a database. We monitor every single video that goes out, not by us, and we monitor the sentiment of those videos. So that for us, it's YouTube. It could be Reddit for you, LinkedIn, some proprietary forum, a BBS forum even. But monitoring what tens of thousands of people mean in their comments is way easier today, especially with off-the-shelf tools like n8n and some LLM. So that's a really big one. And I think why that's really important, it's not that sentiment analysis itself has a massive payoff, but it can inform what you do that maybe can't be automated, or maybe it can, but it informs so many of your playbooks. That's why I would recommend that one as a really impactful one. I'm seeing a lot of organizations do it. I'm seeing some organizations not do it, and I'm seeing the effects of that. But I can strongly recommend, it's never been an easier time for you to go understand what a couple thousand people think that are relevant to you. And why is that really important to what I said before? The sentiment of your product, what thousands of people think, is now the truth. Why? Because that's the source of truth for LLMs. So if we think about AI, search engine optimization, if 1,000 people say your product is buggy, well, then the absolute truth of the world, which is now what people go to LLMs for, and I think in 12 months will not be less true, your product is buggy. Doesn't matter what you say, what your blog article says, what $50,000 worth of paid ads say. That's the truth. So that's why I would say sentiment analysis is so important, because it informs the playbooks that you could execute and opportunities that you will not be on your radar, right? You're scaling, there's all these things happening. You don't understand that sentiment nearly as well as you think you do. And the fact that it then helps you understand how much you rank in the new future world of AI SEO, it's an absolute no-brainer. The other, I think, big obvious trend, that's why I didn't start with it, because it's the obvious one, is content creation. I'm focusing on visual here. Obviously, there's a lot of people using LLMs for text generation. Being honest, why I wouldn't be telling every marketer, hey, you should just start generating AI-generated blogs, because I think we're seeing a big quality issue there right now in the writing. And I think that's a real risk to your brand. So I would say if you're generating text with AI, definitely use some sort of human in the loop, get your voice in there. I see so many years of brand getting destroyed.
It will be my next question, yeah.
Yeah. And so, but visual content, again, there, I'm not talking about these kind of no-face Instagrams that are just trying to pump out something that gets a viral hit. I am seeing a lot of thoughtful ways where you can leverage AI to, for example, localize things. Let's say you have a good asset, a good campaign that's working. You could be regionalizing that, if you're in tourism, maybe it's the Mona Lisa, maybe it's the New York skyline. These sorts of things, very accessible today, very accessible with tools like n8n. So for programmatic ads, anything like that, customizing and tweaking that last mile is something I'm very bullish on. Generating visuals, be it for programmatic ads or for editorial something, is also happening in just not just on the last mile from zero, for example. Really depends there on your industry and stuff. In tech, I think there's a lot more of that happening. Again, there I would say use your judgment, but definitely AI being involved in the mix. Best in class teams are using that for the content generation. And then one big one that I'm really noticing, and this is more for marketing teams that, for example, will do an activation or something like that. Maybe you're going to conferences. the amount of teams that I've seen that have used, let's say, vibe coding and low-code tools like n8n to deliver a web game, an experience that needs a little bit of what an engineer would have to build before. These kinds of throwaway things that don't need very high quality code, that if they fail, there's no business critical process behind it. That's so much of what's possible for a marketer is in that world where we would have to either engage an agency or work with engineering before. If you're semi-technical and up, or if you're willing to be semi-technical and up, again, these days that could be a couple of weeks of your free time. There's so much that you could build and ship yourself without needing an engineering team. And I think that's a big differentiator, because if we're seeing that generating image posts is really easy and lots of people are doing that, how do you differentiate your marketing? Perhaps interactive activations and experiences is part of that image, and it's never been a time where it's easier for you to access that than now.
Sounds really great. You've already touched the question of the human of the loop. In our courses about AI agents, we definitely teach about how to automate a lot of tasks. Content creation is one of our favorites. You can make your Facebook marketer, Instagram marketer, Telegram marketer, etc. But if you talk about the AI agents, where the role of traditional marketer, of the human in this loop? So what is the art of marketing remain paramount? How it need to work in the new world?
Yeah. So let me contextualize this with a conversation that I've had with quite a few creators who are earning, $50,000 plus a month. Their platform is their livelihood. And so their answer is really, they've thought about this a lot because this is their whole brand. Not a single one of them today would trust an AI agent to have the publish button themselves. Every single one of them uses AI in some part of that content process. Not a single one trusts their AI to publish it. I think that's already the biggest learning, is that you are still you're the curator.
Yeah,
you're the curator. So we could say that's human in the loop sometimes. But you know what good looks like. The LLM is predicting things based on like statistical models and stuff. So you are the curator. It's your voice. So your role is to be that final subjective human lens. And that's a really important one. But I would say at a more high level, what are LLMs not good at? What are these models and this technology not good at? It's not good at being novel, the prediction systems. It's very good at aggregating a bunch of things that have happened before and giving you a version of that. And a lot of marketing is that. But so if it's going to do that, and let's say that the execution of your ops then was remote there. If you're saying like generating a bunch of stuff that's already been done before, it's just about volume. The problem is now, let's say everyone has that volume for very cheap. It's a commodity. So when creating a bunch of things that have already happened before is no longer remote, there's no longer barrier to entry, it's novelty. That's what we as marketers can bring to the table. New ideas that the world has not seen before, or taking a good idea from somewhere and understanding that it's good for your space. I just threw the world's first AI agent game show for a tech company that does B2B. That idea has never been done before. As a child, would watch game shows, and I thought the competition there makes sense in this, and I created that novelty. In the execution, I fully expect 2 years from now, an AI agent could handle a lot of that, or even today, some of that process could be done by an AI agent. But I'm not confident that the AI would have come up with that idea or picked it. It may come up with 100 ideas, that's one of them, but where it was certain that was a good idea, I was certain that it was. I was able to go validate that some by having human conversations with people, and then go ask for a rather large budget to go execute that. That was a novel idea that now, if you look at some of our competitors and the content they've done the last couple of months, it has 15, 20x the views than those pieces because of the human novelty. So AI agents are going to be your interns. They're going to be your employees. You're going to be directing them. You're directing them based on your creation. What does good look like? What does taste look like? What is not cringe? And then you're giving them the actual good ideas, and they go do the execution. Those are two things: curation and novel idea generation. I would say at a very high level, if we're not getting into like really specific stuff. And I say that because I think those two things are going to be relevant 12 months from now, 24 months from now, for any marketer. We go levels deeper, then it depends on what kind of marketing, what kind of product. But I think that will be true for anyone.
Max, thanks for a great answer. I will want to take you a little bit back to the definition of AI agent. On our n8n course on Udemy, we have comments like a great course, 5-star, but guys, you are calling the things which are classical marketing automation, you are calling these agents. Where is this border between AI agent and marketing automation? Where you find it?
That's an interesting. I've had this conversation a lot, and I'll just preface this in saying the people that I know who are either making money or creating immense value, which ultimately leads to money from n8n, from automation, from AI, they're not sitting around and having conversations of is it this or is it that. What they do is they identify a problem, they triage that problem and understand if it's worth solving the problem. Just because you have a problem doesn't mean there's ROI in solving that problem. And then they go pick the right tool to solve that problem. That's just whatever you leave from this conversation, that's the most important thing. And then from there, I would say I think of it as a continuum. If you have a problem that is a process, automation could probably help you with that process. And if we look at that continuum on the left, we have traditional workflow automation, deterministic flows, CRUD, ETL, extracting some data from somewhere, transforming it based on rules-based logic that's usually implemented in code or no code, sending that data somewhere. Then we have AI-empowered workflows, where one of those steps runs through an LLM. Maybe it's taking a bunch of text and telling you if it's positive or negative, and then you route based on that, again, with an if statement, and it's, again, a deterministic flow. Then we move on in the continuum, getting near the middle, to agentic workflows. These are, again, traditional workflows that have steps that are agentic. So let's define what that means. An agent, the root word there is agency. What does agency mean? You're determining what you're doing. So how I like to think of it, and there's a lot of different definitions, and I think a lot of them are correct. There's not, the agency police right now telling you yes, no. But to me, well, what is true is you must assign an agent a task because it needs to know when it's done with that task. So you are a helpful assistant is sometimes assigning it a task. It's open-ended, but you assign it a task, and then that agent has the flexibility, the agency to think or do for n steps until it completes a task or reaches some threshold where it says, okay, I couldn't figure out the task. That's basically it. So it's a workflow happening inside the agent's head. It's just the agent gets to decide what that workflow is. So that's a little abstract. To give you an idea, you give an agent a task. Its first thought might be, oh, he's asking me to calculate a budget. To calculate a budget, I have some dependencies I need. It then understands that it has various tools and that those tools could get those dependencies, so it decides to call those tools. It then had that first thought that it needs to get those things. It got those dependencies, and then it thought about if it has enough to generate an answer. If it decided yes, it then outputs. That's the agentic part. And this is a bit of a segue, but my advice to people when to use an AI agent is try not to. Try to do with a deterministic workflow. If that's too complicated or doesn't work, or you have to have too many sub rules and that's brittle, that's when we can start adding this in. So to get back to the continuum, we've got some deterministic steps. Maybe there's agentic steps in the middle. Determine if this, maybe we're approving someone's credit. Maybe one step of that is determining if they're fraudulent or not. And maybe you've been able to model that in an agent because there's so many things to consider. But once that outputs yes, no, fraudulent or not, the rest of that workflow is, again, deterministic. So agentic workflow. And then on the right hand of that continuum, we have a full AI agent. It's given a task. It has tools and can get context from the world. And it just keeps doing and thinking until it says so, until it thinks it's completed the task. It outputs that answer. And it's fully a non-deterministic LLM-based system. For most scenarios where I'm seeing enterprise and SMB using agentic systems, most of the time in this agentic workflow, because technically AI agent, really, you couldn't have anything before anything after. It's fully autonomous. And if I know, like, most processes have some kind of a constraint where I could remove that autonomy. Every time I can remove that autonomy and I can put it into an if statement, because the total world of possibilities can be distilled into a true or false, do that. Never give the LLM the potential to get that wrong, Because even if it's at 99.5%, you got that 0.5% to contend with. Bit of a big answer, but I hope that gives you an idea of how I like to think about them, how I define this continuum, and why you might want to start more on the left of the continuum and push yourself to justify why you have to go to the right of that continuum.
Max, one of the crucial questions for marketers is metrics and success. If you talk about the questions about AI agents, what metrics do you recommend during the process of implementation of AI agents? And the question which always on the top, ROI. So how we can measure the return on investment, what use cases, positive, negative use cases maybe you have. Can you share this with our audience, please?
Yeah. So most of this doesn't change from the traditional world of like use case specific KPIs, right? So like if your job is to perhaps you're replying to comments, right? On your various channels. And the time per comment is 15 minutes. And you as a business decide we need to get this down to 10 per minute. Or maybe it's comments per week answered or whatever. That's probably if you're doing things properly, that's what you would have done anyways, because you don't go solve a problem if you don't have a good idea of what the business result is. So AI or not AI, that business result is the most important thing, because we don't add AI to say we added AI. I mean, maybe in some situation, if you get some grant money, you have to, but that's not real business. If you're adding AI, it's to solve a problem. So know what that problem is. Once we've checked that, we say, okay, good. We've got business outcome KPIs. The things that I could recommend to track is cost per run, right? So there is going to be a cost. And I think one misnomer I see a lot of engineers get into, they'll use, for example, cheaper models because like, but Max, it's only 5% of the cost of that big model. And my response is, well, but think of the context. A human that's doing this action, it costs us $15 for them to do it. The conversation we're having right now is that cost now 0.1 cent or 5 cents? If the 5 cents is 3% better, go for the 5 cents, really orders of magnitude cheaper. So cost is one, but I highly recommend today use the best models that use case can afford, especially if your status quo is orders of magnitude higher. And that's a really good framing that's worked for conversing with stakeholders. We need to get budget for that. So if you're in marketing and you're advocating for budget there, do think of that status quo there. So that's an important one for cost. And then from there, I think it's really about evaluations. So for a marketer to understand how these systems work is most of the world that you've interacted with digitally was deterministic. Like most things that are programmed, deterministic. So if I send in, and what that means is if you think of it as a function, like we had in school and math, if I send in the number 1, the number 3 comes out. The next time I send in the number 1, number 3 will always come out. It's a deterministic system. That's how most of code is done. LLMs are non-deterministic. It's a bell curve. It's a probabilistic system. 1 comes in, maybe I have a 90% chance of getting a 3, but I got a 5% chance of getting a 4, a 5% chance of getting a 2. We have a bell curve. What evaluations allow us to do is understand how tight that bell curve is and how flat it is. And how I like to think of it, if this is my bell curve and this is meets requirement, this is good, this is shipped, this is boss is happy, this is customers happy. How much are we in here versus here? Maybe my bell curve is so tight that every single time we're in there, great. Maybe we're failing a couple % of the time. Is that okay for the use case? Maybe for approving brand partnership deals? No. But for some small marketing action that risks €1, maybe it's okay to get that wrong 5% of the time if you're automating the 95% of the time, and that's creating big business value. Evaluations could be a whole masterclass in and of itself. But what I will say is, if you're going to build some complicated AI agents, to get into evaluation frameworks, some tech savviness might be helpful there. But the good news is, if you just ask an engineer to create an evaluation set, as we call them, for your AI agent, and it's a marketing AI agent, if you're not in the room, they will do a worse job than you. It's all about domain expertise. It's defining what good looks like. And then it's an engineer can define, hey, let's evaluate the outputs of this AI agent for correctness or tone or voice to make sure it's consistent with the expected outcome. And just for those who are struggling with what an evaluation might look like, basically you would have like the test input that will go into the AI agent, and you would have like a static expected outcome. So this is like your source of truth that you as a market said, this is the expected output. And then we compare the AI agent's output to that on things like correctness and whatnot. But you're in the driver's seat, and you as the marketing domain expert are the best person in the room to define what that expected output is. But as soon as you're getting out of POC, it's not necessarily, like a KPI or something or a metric. Well, it could be seen as one, as how often on our eval set is it performing well, but set an expectation there, a definition of good there, and monitor that. And the last thing I'll say there is evals are a living, breathing thing. The world's not static. The kinds of requests that come in are not static. So you got a new class of requests coming in. Let's say it's replying to people. You're going to have to start having some evals that model those kinds of requests to see if you're answering those kind of requests well.
Max, we announced you as the guy who will talk about emerging trends in AI agents. Let's finalize with topic of the trends. Definitely, you better understand what marketers need to keep their radars, to keep their eyes in further. What are the emerging trends in the AI agent space that are crucial for marketers? And what's the next for agentic marketing? What do you expect in the next 12, 18 months that what will be happened? Can you share your perspective on this question?
Sure. When it comes to models improving, they're improving very quickly and in non-linear ways. So the biggest, so that's the biggest trend, is that this stuff is happening fast enough to where in an organization, a great example, they built an AI agent. It's working 95% of the time. That's not good enough for their case. So they say, all right, this project was wasted. Let's delete it. But then a month later, the model comes out. They swap the model like, hey, we're at 99%. It's good to go. Ship it. If that AI agent didn't exist, if they hadn't tried that, if they didn't know that they're 4% away, they're months behind the competitor that does have that. So the biggest trend is build use cases and use tools like n8n in these models and identify, like, if it's already there, great, ship it, great, you're getting value. But if it's almost there, understand how much further, again, evaluations help, you need for it, so that you can stay on top of new models that come out and jump on that as soon as you can. Because the thing about these models is they become a commodity very quickly. The only reason they're not a commodity is the information that they exist and how to utilize them and the implementing that. So really, and that all is happening faster. So if you're looking at your competitors and whatnot, the best thing you can have is these agents and pipelines and automations either working for you to some desirable degree, maybe there's some human in the loop because they're not perfect yet, but you having the pipeline and the infrastructure ready to accept all this greatness that comes at a pretty accessible and really cheap value if we consider like the last 200 years of technology. That's one. On a really specific one, I see this happening with vision a lot. Like, I think like I was mind blown 2 months ago, and then my mind keeps getting blown. It's almost not mind blown. It's like I'm expecting to get mind blown next month by something. But if your job at all involves generating visual outputs, text, image, this kind of thing, do be monitoring vision models, because they're quick to come out. And the trend I've seen is they have kind of a tech preview where you can explore it, but you can't consume it programmatically. This happened with Nano Banana. Gemini made it available, people could test it, but you weren't able to consume it at scale programmatically. But I believe that just happened, or if not, soon. So stay on top of these tech demos that you get to check out, because then you basically get some weeks of lead time on knowing, okay, well, this technology is here. How am I going to leverage that in my playbooks and pipelines? And you can have that pipeline ready to go. So as soon as it comes out, you got a couple of weeks on your competitor, which, for example, if you're making a YouTube video, a couple of weeks ahead of the competition could be what entrenches you as that number one video in that space for the next 16 months, right? So staying ahead on those and having your pipeline ready to accept that value to win against the competition. And then a big one that's coming, it's in alpha and n8n. It will be getting released. I'm not the guy to say exactly when, but text to workflow. So what that means is describing a complicated n8n workflow via text and having it generate. Now, that might not, for a complicated
workflow,
really
cute.
Yeah, that might not happen in one text, right? There might not just be like one sentence and the whole process is automated, but an iterative approach. And that's what I'm most excited for marketers, because I see a lot of marketers using AI assistants to overcome the technical gap that used to be there from getting value from tools like n8n. But I'm here to tell everyone that like is slightly technical enough that doesn't mind getting their hands dirty, doesn't mind getting confused and getting unconfused. There's going to be so much that's possible for you in terms of your ops, that you'd be blocked by some ops team or something. Like we said, marketing activations, being able to go build that thing, sentiment analysis, all these little side tools and things for you to do your job fast, to understand if you need to go acquire that solution or to try out some marketing playbook.
What do you believe text workflow, will it be available in the next year or later?
Oh, I think before the end of the year, it's going to
Oh,
be available to a lot of n8n users, and I think it's going to be good, and I think it's going to get better because these kinds of tools, you need the people using it, you get the insights, and you iterate and improve on it.
I remember it was the same issue with vibe coding 1 year ago when everyone told that it can be created website with just single prompt. Everyone was joking, and the first startups were very bad. It's maybe the crucial stuff, but right now when we have Lovable,
Yeah,
everyone is understand that it's reality, and I think that if you will release text overflow till the end of the year, it will be a new amazing reality for everyone.
I really hope so. I think like the great thing about n8n, because we talk about n8n, look, if everyone can just generate workflows, what's the point of n8n? It's like so that you can see it. Unlike a front end, the back end could delete your whole database. You can go inspect that, or maybe your engineering team needs to go inspect that because you're in marketing and before it goes connects to those critical systems. But that's possible to do. So my advice, if you're in marketing, because the barrier will be lowered so much, and because that barrier will be open to everyone, like companies like ours are going to offer that to every marketer that wants to use us, that will be a commodity. The best thing that you could do, and I see this myself, the results that I get, let's say from Cursor, which is a vibe coding tool, I get better results than some of my friends who are less technical than me because I can precisely ask for what I need, or I can sometimes look at what it's recommending and say, hey, that's a bad idea because of some knowledge on this. I'm not an expert,
Previous
but enough.
experience, yeah.
Yeah. And so um, if you learned a little bit about the technical world that you don't want to be in because you want to text to workflow it, you'll be that much better than, let's say, a peer in the industry that is just trusting the prompt. So what that might look like is knowing how data is structured already is going to help you a lot, for example.
Max, we're definitely out of time, but the last question, a lot of our audience are newbies. They want to start with AI agents. 5-step, a small algorithm that will help them to start.
Sorry, could you repeat the question? Cut off.
Can you give our audience a 5-step algorithm how they can start with AI agents?
5-step algorithm for AI agents. Yeah. The first one is documenting your problems and understanding what they are, because you're not going to know what to build. My advice there, pretend you have a panic button underneath your desk. Think about in your day when you would press that button and write that down. And then later see how much you're pressing the panic button on a certain task. From there, when it comes to AI agents, you can download a tool like n8n. A lot of people say that it's rather easy to use. There's alternatives as well. I just want you learning this technology. I deal with n8n, but with any tool that you use. And start really simple. Why do people use an agent? It should be using a tool or getting some context from the world. People will use agents without any of this. There's no need to use an agent for that. So my advice is pick one app that's personally relevant to you. Maybe it's Google Calendar, maybe it's Slack, maybe it's something personal like Telegram, and start playing around with. You don't have to have a use case or problem yet. One tool, one agent, and understanding how those work. As you do that, you can watch some YouTube videos. I have one, for example. There's others on system prompting, on context engineering, some people are calling it, how to speak with the LLMs. There's some tips there. Some people overcomplicate it, but you could probably watch half an hour of content and really improve yourself there. And once you have a one tool AI agent working there, go build a really simple evaluation set for that. Again, I and some of my peers online, there's content around the online. It's totally free. You don't have to pay for a course. Go learn about that. Then you have all the building blocks and you've done the full loop to go pick from your list that you've been pressing the panic button, go pick a small problem and go try to automate that. So while you're documenting what your problems are, go through the loop and learn those key things. Again, that's basic AI, just how it works with one tool, with an actual app that you care about. It's basic system prompting, and then get into evaluations a little bit. And you'll have a nice foundation to start on a problem that's relevant for you.
Max, thank you for amazing questions. I was happy to have you, and I hope for all our audience it was very useful. Thank you one more time for joining us today.
Likewise, Anton. My pleasure. My pleasure. Happy flowgramming, everyone.